welcome to Riri's Talk Show. Guess what? Today I have an exciting guest, and you know what we call her here in the Bay? We call her April, the Wine Diva. Now, you have to wonder, because our topic today is I found my passion by accident. Joining me on the set today is April, the Wine Diva, and you will soon find out why we call her the Wine Diva. So welcome, April, to the set.
Thank you, thank you.
So April, welcome. How are you doing?
I am great. Happy to be here. I'm so excited to talk a little bit about what I do.
Yes, no, I'm super excited because there's so many ladies and gentlemen out there that wants to know what Wine Diva is all about and how you found your passion by accident, which is our topic today. So April, how did you get started onto this journey? Why are you the Wine Diva?
Well, interesting enough, I actually wasn't into wine when I first started. I didn't love wine, but I loved stories and telling stories.
Oh, wow.
And I was really interested in certain demographics of winemakers, ones that were not represented all the time. So minority winemakers really caught my interest, and I wanted to learn about their stories and how they got into this industry. And in studying them, I realized I should probably know a little bit about wine. Okay. So I went to school, studied, got my credentials, and my business kind of evolved from there. And then I grew my passion for wine. And ultimately, people started calling me the Wine Diva. I adopted this title. It wasn't self-inflicted.
I love that.
Yes, people started calling me. They would introduce me to different venues, and they would call me the Wine Diva everywhere I went. So it really took over my business name more so. People knew me as the Wine Diva as opposed to anything else.
And it's an amazing, catchy name, especially for a business, entrepreneur. Now, before, I'd like to get into some of the stories that intrigued you, to study further. But tell me a little bit about your story. What is April all about? What did you do before? About your family. Tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So I'm not a Bay Area native. I'm from Long Beach, California. So I'm a Southern California girl. I ended up in the Bay Area like many of us have.
Yes.
I went to college in San Francisco, and I'm a mommy. I have 3 daughters that keep me relatively busy as well.
Oh, I bet.
Yes.
I bet.
Before this, I was actually a flight attendant, and I was an event planner.
You were a flight attendant, so you were the stewardess,
Yes.
one of those ladies, walking down.
Yes.
I always love that, when you get into the plane and how they do the whole direction.
Yes, that was me for 10 years. But I always knew I wanted to own my own business. I just didn't know what that was going to be. So I started other businesses prior to this. They were successful, but I got bored with them and let them go, or sold them, or closed them. And finally, when I got to this, I was like, I can do this and I can keep this and really see some longevity with this business as opposed to the other things that I did that really weren't my passions. I liked them, but they didn't have my heart like this one does.
Now, how did you know to start a business or start the many that you did and let them go and just, okay, that's not for me. That's not for me.
Right.
How did you know?
It really was, my heart wasn't in it. I would do it for a couple of years and get bored, or I wasn't as interested in the topic anymore. So I was ready to kind of push it off and try something new. And it took a few times before I got to this point to where I could settle on one business and really love what I do and love sharing it with the rest of the world.
Now, did anything happen in your life? Because of course, so often I find that the reason why we break off to becoming our own being is because something happened. Did anything happen in your life that transformed you, that made a big impact, that changed you to go down this path?
Yes, entrepreneurship, really for me, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so that was kind of the big one. And I realized in working in corporate America, I was giving way more than I was getting back. And I was caring more about every company than they did about me and what I needed and what my life required for balance. So I knew ultimately I had to work for myself in order to have freedom, missing things like funerals and weddings because I had to work because somebody told me that I couldn't go was a problem. And that was happening over and over and over again. I was like, you know what? I'm missing my life because I'm giving so much to these companies, and then I would get laid off. Time and time again, I would get laid off and laid off and laid off before I realized, you know what? I can do this for myself and not have to worry about getting laid off or missing really important things to my family and for my life.
Right. Now, I know, of course, in the corporate world, we all come from the corporate world and we learned from it and we change. And now, of course, like you said, you were missing weddings, you were missing your life. When was that courageous moment for you? Because, of course, some of our viewers that are watching, like, oh, you know what, but I can't do that. You know, I have to pay bills. I have to, you know, a part of what this show is about is showcasing the real people, real issues, real, you know, things that happens in your life. And we don't have the money that other people do in Hollywood, right? We're not born with the silver spoon.
Exactly.
So how does real people like yourself able to make that big courageous choice?
It was difficult. With my other businesses, I always had a real job on the side. So if things didn't work, I still had that real job. With this one, about 6 months in, I was like, I can do this. I believe that I can do this. So I saved up money for 6 months. I gave myself a time frame. I had 2 kids at the time. I was a single mom at the time, and I walked away from my full-time job to start my business. And it really was thinking of a plan and knowing that I had to do this, that I don't have another option. I don't have a plan B. This has to work for me. It has to work for my kids. I need to stay focused. And that's really what it was. You really have to step out on faith because you don't know. You don't know if it's going to work or not, but you have to. It's never going to work if you are staying in corporate America because you're always going to focus on that job more than your business. That's always going to be your first priority is making that money, getting that check. So your business is going to come second or third or fourth. And so it's never going to make that movement so that you can make a transition out of corporate America. So it's really important that you take that leap, prepare yourself and take the leap.
Right, and I love that because, you know, some of the people that's going to be watching like, well, you know what, April, maybe you got money stashed up. You know, maybe you have a rich uncle. Maybe you have a rich mom or dad that you're not telling us about, right? You know, the fact that you were a single mom, 2 children. I mean, I believe the key point here, you know, ladies and gentlemen, she said, I had a real job, right? She was working in the corporate America, and then it didn't stop you from starting things that made sense to you.
Exactly.
You know, you got to always keep your options open, right?
Exactly.
Now, when you did leave, it had to be scary for you.
Yes. It's still scary. But yes, it was scary because I thought I don't have this check every 2 weeks. Like, what am I going to do? I didn't have health insurance. I had to think about, you know, all these little things that normally would be taken care of in a job. I had to take care of myself. So it was definitely scary. There were some times when I was like, I may have to borrow some money from somebody. I have to pay bills. I had kids in private school. So there was a lot on my plate as a single mom. So I was scared, but that makes you work harder. When you don't know when that check is coming, you're going to get out there and make it happen. And that's what I did. It forced me to step out of my comfort zone and work really, really hard and do a lot of things that I did not want to do, like making sales calls and following up with people, things I hate doing, but I did it and it worked.
You know, like I said, this show is all about showcasing the real people and relating to the audience that are out there. You know, you're single mom, you stepped out on faith, you know, you worked a real daytime, full-time job, you know, and decided to leave in 6 months once you saved up a little bit of money to get started. And like you said, you had to work hard. You were not receiving or expecting those weekly or bi-weekly checks, right? So it made you even work harder. Now tell me about that transition.
I mean, you really have to rethink your budget. More than anything else. We find out what's important, what we don't need. Maybe we don't need all the trips to the movies or extra clothes or extra shoes. So you really have to think about your budget and how you're going to make
Starbucks.
that. Exactly. Starbucks is out. We did a lot of free activities for a long time while we made that adjustment because your family is still your family. They still have the same needs. Those are not going to change. What needs to change is the way you think and how you're going to meet those needs. It was stressful. I cannot tell a lie. We had some stressful times. We definitely had some tight days and weeks and months, but we made it happen. Somehow we made it happen. People chipped in, everybody chipped in around the house, and we had to cut a coupon, we cut a coupon.
Right.
But we made it happen until we got on our feet. And it was worth it. It was worth every sacrifice that we made, everything we had to miss because we needed to get to this point.
Right, and I think what's really important, I shouldn't say think, what I believe it's really important is that because you make that courageous leap, it impacts the whole entire household.
Right, exactly.
And I believe a lot of people out there don't realize that, especially for us parents, right? When we make changes, we don't realize that it impacts and it trickles down.
Exactly.
You know, so I love the fact that you said you have to, you know, hold free activities. Now, tell my audience, what type of free activities?
You would be amazed at how many things the city offers. They have free movie nights. They have free boating events. And so I really just researched all of those so that every weekend we still had activities and my kids didn't have to miss out. Even going for a picnic was a huge deal for them. They had so much fun going for a walk. So really kids don't need big stuff. They just want to spend that time. So if you can think of creative things to do with your kids during this time, they'll be fine. They really will. They're going to appreciate the time that you're with them more than anything else. I didn't miss a soccer game. I didn't miss a basketball game during that time. I didn't miss volunteering in school. And those things made up for a lot of the bigger things that we would normally do, like going to the movies or taking a trip, doing a vacation. I think those things were much more meaningful to them.
And that's very valuable. That's very, very valuable because parents, you know, you need to understand that money cannot buy love. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if you agree with me.
That's true.
But it cannot, you know, money is, we need to utilize it as a vessel. It's a necessity to buy things and live and whatnot. But it definitely is not required in order for us to live here. Because like April said, she found a lot of free activities that the city offers. I mean, of course, when you're at a certain income bracket, right? One point in my time, we were on welfare, and I have no shame in telling that because guess what? I paid into it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So that also exists. I mean, there's so many programs, you know, so it's definitely doable.
Exactly.
And now, after going after this dream, 6 months, was this when you started learning? You mentioned earlier that minority businesses in the wine, why was that so important to you?
It was, you know, typically in this industry, if you have a winery, a lot of times your family, it's generational. You're like the third or fourth generation. And these businesses, they didn't have that story. Their story was they worked the land and they picked the grapes, or they did things working for these bigger wineries, and then they transitioned into having their own brand. Or some people just tried a wine one time when they were a kid and they said from that moment on, they wanted to own a winery, and they spent their entire life working to become a winery owner. So these stories were so intriguing to me, and I wanted other people to know about them. There are not that many minority winemakers out there. And so I wanted people to know their stories and know what they did and kind of bridge that gap between the consumer and the winemaker. And that was really what I was passionate about before I even tried the wine.
Really?
Yes.
So you were more passionate about the people,
Exactly.
you know, behind the scenes, the business owners, because like you said, there's not very many minority wine owners out there. And learning their stories, these are the people that actually worked it.
Right.
They were in the cultivation process, they were in the harvest process, they worked and farmed on the land. I think that's actually pretty awesome. I'm probably going to leave that for the next segment, right?
Exactly.
But, you know, it's amazing. And now, when did you start getting into the wine after that you learned and studied the history of the people that are farming these wineries that are owned by minorities?
Exactly. So as I was visiting each of these winemakers, the first thing they wanted to do was give me wine. And I
want some wine right now.
Thank you. They were very generous with wine, but I wasn't a wine drinker, and I didn't necessarily care for wine. I didn't understand wine. And I would come back and people would always say, well, how was the wine? Did you love it?
You're like, huh?
It was wine.
It's like whatever.
It tastes like every other wine I've had. So I realized I really needed to learn about what I was drinking just so that I could be a service to these winemakers, because I was doing them a disservice, just getting information, but I couldn't tell about the wine, and that's why they're in business. And I couldn't bridge the gap if I didn't know what that product was. So that's when I decided I would go to school, study wine as much as I possibly can, get all the knowledge, and share that as well with as many people as possible. And that's what I've done.
You know, April, what made you so interested to go study about these minority business owners? Like, what made your mind, like, you have to be, you know, a curious person, just wake up one day, like, I'm gonna go study why the minorities, how do they do it, and why, and where, when, and all that good stuff.
Right, exactly. Part of it is probably just being nosy.
I love that.
I have to admit that part. I also study journalism, so I always want this story.
Oh, wow.
Always want this story. But it was just really interesting to me. And so many people didn't know these stories or had never heard of these stories before. And so I saw a television show with this black guy in a vineyard with a cowboy hat on. I was like, what is he doing? Like, why is he there?
Like, this is not normal.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, what is he doing? And he was a winemaker. And I thought, like, black people make wine? Who else makes wine?
Right.
I have no idea. And so really, every time I asked the question, there was 10 more questions that I had. So I wanted to find more. Well, there was only like 15 in the whole country.
What?
So I'm like, well, why are there only 15? That's another question, so I need to find that out. And then I found out the resources weren't available, or they couldn't get into big box stores like other wineries. Well, why is that? Why? So there were so many whys that I just
You were like a kid in the winery industry,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. Like,
Tell me
why? Exactly. Always another question.
Right.
So that's really what it was about, was just kind of answering those next questions. And a lot of them were so receptive to me coming out and me calling them all the time to ask questions that it worked out really well.
And I bet they love the fact that there's a young girl interested as to what made them become a winery, you know, or a vineyard owner, farmer, or what have you.
Exactly.
And would there be a couple of wineries that you would recommend to the audience that's here locally? Because you said 15. That is that is wow. The whole entire country, 15.
That's it. That is it. So there's not that many. A lot of them don't have wineries that are open to the public.
Okay.
But I recommend in Santa Barbara, there's Rideau Vineyards, which is a beautiful New Orleans themed vineyard out there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful space, and very hospitable. Everything is about New Orleans, from the wine to the experience. Ooh. So definitely go there.
When I think New Orleans, I think about the Southern comfort food and Mardi Gras.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what her winery embodies. Yes, that's it. So if you're out that way, definitely go there. Another one to visit is actually not far from here, and we have some of their wines today. It's called Longevity, which is in Livermore. So very close, very, very close. Easy to get to, and we'll try the wine today, so you'll get a little taste of what they have to offer.
We are going to talk to you about the different types of wine, and that April is going to educate myself and you all. She will showcase as to why she was named and called the Wine Diva. As you can see, she brought her display, she brought a couple of wines, and I will let her tell you all about it, because I can't wait to understand the significance of what these glasses mean, pairing with your wine and all that good stuff, because that's why she's here, right, April?
Exactly.
So April, go ahead and take it away for the audience.
Exactly. So as you can see here, we have 3 different types of glasses. And these are really significant for the wines that you pour in them. And we brought each wine for each glass.
Oh.
So we have a bubbly, something a little sparkly.
Okay.
We have a Zinfandel, which is a red, and we have a Chardonnay, which is a white. So all of these, again, are perfect for each glass. This changes the taste of your wine.
Oh, wow.
And people are surprised to know that. So with the bubbly, we want to use a flute, which is tall and thin. And the reason we use this type of glass is because it holds bubbles. It keeps your bubbles intact. When you pour bubbly stuff in a big glass like this, it's going to go flat.
Oh, no wonder why. No wonder, because I just be pouring wine in whatever glass I have, and I'm just thinking I look pretty, you know, holding it.
Exactly. No. You have flat stuff if you use this one. So if you pour bubbly stuff in a big glass like this, you need to drink it really fast.
Okay.
If you put it in here, it's going to keep your bubbles intact.
So that's why they serve the champagne in these bottles.
Exactly. The next one is a white wine glass, and that's these little guys. So for a white wines don't need air. So these are perfect. It keeps the white wine kind of closed off, if you would, because it doesn't need air, like a red wine. As opposed to this one, which would be for a red wine, Reds need air. So you hear people say all the time, it needs to breathe, it needs to open up, it needs a glass like this. So this releases that air. So when you swirl it, it gets air, smells different, tastes different. Every time it gets more air, it changes with each sip.
Really?
Yeah, so that's why you need this big
calls her
glass.
Sip and swirl.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's why you have the big glasses, and some of them are even bigger than this. But that's the difference in each glass, and it will change the taste.
Oh, wow.
Of your
so that's why
wine.
there's a whole lot of, I just thought it looked cute. You
No.
know, they look all fancy and classy, just doing all this.
No,
Okay.
there is a method to all of the swirling.
I never knew that there's a technique to the swirling because often I see people lifting it up this way and, like it's cute. And like you're seeing, guys, now what is the appropriate way of swirling and sipping?
So with swirling, you want to do whatever you're comfortable with. So some people are comfortable swirling like this, which is fine. That's not wrong. You can swirl on the table. So if you want to keep the glass down and swirl this way, perfectly fine. If you're really, really amazing, you can swirl like this, and that's fine as well. But this is never okay. So you never want to swirl or touch here.
No bueno.
Don't do that. Bueno. Don't do that.
The reason being,
you don't want to, particularly in a tasting room, you don't want to leave fingerprints on your glass because it's going to change the clarity. You can't see your wine clearly.
Okay.
It's also going to heat up your
The
wines,
wine.
and you don't want that heat transfer between your hand and the wine.
wow.
You don't want hot wine, especially if it's a white wine. The same thing goes for whites as well. But it really is just about your comfort zone and what you're comfortable with.
Okay, so this is going to be interesting because now I'm going to go to the restaurants and I'm going to be watching everybody that's holding their glass. I'll be like, "You're a newbie. You need to go watch our show to learn how to hold and sip and swirl a wine glass the right way." Right?
Exactly.
So now you said that you brought specific glasses according to the wine.
Right.
Now, why is that?
It really changes the taste more than anything else, and people aren't really aware of that. But the type of glass you choose, not just the shape, but the type of glass itself will change the taste of your wine and how it reacts in your mouth. So it's very different on the palate based on the glasses. So the reds need air, so big bowl, lots of air. Whites don't need air. Air isn't going to impact the taste. Tall and narrow, no air is important for these. And then, like I said, with the champagnes, no air, lots of bubbles, and we want to hold on to those bubbles with this type of glass.
So any bubbly or sparkly wine or champagne.
You need a flute.
A flute?
A flute.
A flute. Hey.
Yes. And you don't have to spend tons and tons of money. You can invest a lot of money in a glass if you like, but this one just came from IKEA, so it's really affordable. You can get them for less than $2. But if you want to kind of do a comparison and have some glasses that you just use at home, you can use more expensive brands as well.
Oh, okay. That is super nice. Now, do we get to taste? Who did you bring with you today?
Yes, so I brought, for our tasting, I brought wines from Longevity Wines.
Okay.
They are local. They're located in Livermore. They produce wines from different areas. So the Zinfandel we have actually comes from Lodi, which is the Zen capital of the country.
Yes.
And then we also have a Chardonnay that comes from Livermore Valley, which is where they're based. Here we have a Sauvignon Blanc that's a sparkling Sauvignon Blanc, and it's created by Botkin Wines. This is the first sparkling Sauv Blanc in the state.
Really?
Yes, so, yeah.
So you went old school.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we will try a little bit of all of them. We'll start with the white.
Okay.
Because that's just what you do. You start with lighter wines and then you move through to the darkers.
Oh gosh, I must look like some kind of like, I'm not going to say the word. I'm like, just give me the red. I'm a Cabernet. I love cabs.
Right. As do I.
Oh, awesome.
I always start with a white.
Okay.
If you go in a tasting room and they ask you, where do you want to start? You always want to start with the white.
Okay.
So don't start with the red unless you're just going to do reds.
And they're called, when you go to a tasting room, especially if you're brand new like I was a few years ago, I was like, I'm here for a tasting. I didn't know that you had to pay for a tasting. I didn't know, that it comes in different, like they have a 5 flight,
Right.
7 flight, and all that good
Yes.
stuff. And the purpose of you paying for the tasting is for you to actually buy the bottle that you like.
Exactly right. And to
So.
discover things about your palate, like maybe you do like whites, you just haven't found the right white.
Yeah.
That's why I tell people, like, keep tasting until you figure it out. So for the Chardonnay, we're gonna pour. So typically with a tasting in a tasting room, they're gonna give you just about an ounce. Just about, maybe an ounce and a half, but somewhere along those lines. That's
Okay.
a normal tasting amount. And that is like a legal taste. It's called an ABC pour.
Oh, I didn't know that
Right.
they had a legal taste.
Exactly. So that's a standard ABC pour. And like I said, with a white wine, we don't need to worry about air because air is not going to change them. You're swirling these just to get the smell, just so you can get that aroma. And we can swirl again down low, or we can swirl up high. Either one is fine. Get your swirl on. And with a Chardonnay, they range in color. So they can be this color, they can be really pale, almost clear, all the way to a really deep golden yellow. Right? So the flavors are different and the coloring is different. And then you want to smell.
A little crisp.
Right, exactly. And so that's what you're getting is learn things about how it was aged. Was it aged in steel or oak? Does it
You
smell
can tell it was
creamy, right,
aged.
or fruity? So all those things you're going to get when you smell. And that's what they mean when they say on the nose. So on the
Oh.
nose, it's creamy. Or on the nose, it's clean or crisp. That's what they're talking about is aroma.
Oh, wow.
When you smell, you want to take this, put it to the top of the bridge of your nose. So it goes like this. So your nose is really inside of there.
Really?
Right? You get a completely
Wow, I
different
never knew
taste of the wine. See? Learning stuff.
Really?
Yes, and those are
I'm
the things
over
that
here
you're
like-
looking at. Right, no. It's all the way in and a big sniff. Right? So you smell, it's totally different, right? Than
Wow.
going like this.
That is, because you can tell, like, when I first smelled it, I'm like, it is
Right.
a kind of age, but going all the way
Exactly,
in.
completely
all up in
changes.
there.
Right, exactly, it completely changes. And then people are also looking at the clarity. So that color that I was talking about, they're looking for the shades that they see in the Chardonnay as well, because those tell you different things about the wine. And once you do all of that, it's ready for your mouth. And that's the last thing to taste wine is your mouth.
I'm going to look like a professional when I go to a restaurant.
Yep, so now we can taste. Cheers.
Cheers.
Take a look at the red wine.
Okay.
We did the whites, and now we're gonna do a Zinfandel. And this one is from Lodi, and Lodi is the Zen capital of the country. That's what they do, and it's what they do best. So we'll do 2 of these.
Now, what's the difference between a Zinfandel, Cab, and Merlot?
Really, it is the grape.
Oh, okay.
That's the biggest difference. A Zinfandel comes from a Zinfandel grape. Cab comes from a Cab grape. A Merlot comes from a Merlot grape. And what's going to be different about them all is how they grow and where they grow. The climate determines really what you're going to get in the bottle. So if it's foggy, if it's cold, if it's a wet climate, all those things impact the grape, which ultimately impacts what's going to be in your bottle.
Wow.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Exactly. So everything impacts wine.
Now, the
Everything.
Zinfandel seems to be a little bit more lighter than the Merlot and the Cab.
Yes, it really is kind of an all-purpose wine.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a great wine if you're going to someone's house for dinner. It's a great wine to take because it pairs with a lot of foods, pastas, beef, barbecue. It's a strong, hearty wine, so it can stand up to really big foods.
I love that you brought that because I was going to ask you about that, of course, to educate people. When you go to people's house and you really don't know what their taste is like, but you know what type of food that they make,
Right.
you really have to understand and what's the right wine to bring to the dinner table,
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So always ask what's on the menu. You may not be able to pair wine with every single item, but pick one thing. Like if they're having lasagna and salad and corn.
Right.
Don't focus on the corn, focus on the lasagna.
Right.
And take a big red, something that can stand up to a pasta sauce. If they're having something that's fatty, like a fried chicken or
Fried
fried fish.
'Cause you know, I
Take
love me some
something-
fried chicken.
Exactly. Bring something bubbly. Something
Oh.
dry and bubbly, like a dry brut champagne, because those bubbles cut the fat.
Really?
Yes.
Now everybody's gonna go and grab them a bubbly.
Grab a bubbly for tonight.
Like she says it cuts fat. I'm gonna go get me some right
I'm on
now.
a bubbly diet. But yeah, that works really well, especially for Thanksgiving. So you can really surprise people with the holidays coming up and take a bubbly instead of a still wine.
Yeah.
And it pairs really well with a lot of the fat that you have.
You know, I love how you said that because now I see why they serve so many champagnes at like buffet, like brunches.
Yes, exactly.
Because it really helps you digest
exactly.
and eat more.
Right. Right. You can eat more eggs, more cheese.
Right.
All the fried bacon and sausage goes great with the mimosas.
Oh.
Yes.
The mimosa all day.
Exactly. So let's look at the reds.
Okay.
And see what we can tell from these. So again, you're going to swirl. For a red, the swirling is really important because it's going to get air into the wines. It's almost like an aerator that you're doing yourself. This wine has already been open for a little over an hour, so it has gotten a lot of air just in the bottle. Now once we put it in the glass, that's more air. And we have this big wide bowl, and that's more air. And now we're going to swirl it and get even more air. So had we tasted this when I first opened it, it would be completely different from what's in the glass now.
Oh, wow.
Just in that hour.
Wow.
Yeah, totally different. Zinfandels can range in color from, this is a light burgundy, but it can go really, really deep, really dark, almost to a ruby color. With these, you can also tell age. With the wine, you can tell a lot of things just by visually tasting the wine. Right, so we're looking at all of that.
Visual.
Yeah, as are most people. And you can tell from our swirling, now we have these streaks on the glass.
Yes.
And those are called legs. If you ever hear people say it has
I never
great
knew
legs, that's what they're talking about, those streaks. And those streaks tell us a lot, but most importantly, liquor content. So the thicker the streaks, the higher alcohol content.
What?
Yes.
Now I'm going to be looking at that. Like,
The
this
thicker
wine
the liquor.
doesn't have enough.
Exactly. I need more.
Right.
So those are all things that we're kind of looking for in those first visuals when we look at wine in a tasting room. And remember, that's why we're holding on to the stem, because once you start holding the bowl, you're not going to be able to see those legs and all those fabulous things that a red will offer you.
Well, she's got legs.
And then, then again, we're going to do the nose. And we're going to do it the same way, putting our nose completely inside and getting a good sniff of what's in there, right? And so, yes, and with red, you can pick up things like tobacco, caramel, berries, lots of flavors and smells inside of a red wine. But I always tell people, you taste what you taste and you smell what you smell. It really depends on you, how you grew up, where you grew up. If I say it smells like licorice, but you've never had licorice,
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Right.
That's irrelevant to you. And so you want to think
Smell
about
like bananas.
Right.
Exactly.
So just got to remember there's no right or wrong. Even if it says on the paper that there's blackberries in here, you may not taste or smell them.
Oh, wow.
And then our last thing is to taste. And this with the red wine, we're going to taste two different ways. So just a regular taste like you normally would. Good, very light Zinfandel. Now we're going to do a different tasting that's going to give us the finish. And the finish on a wine is the last thing you taste right back here.
And how do you do that?
Very tricky. So we're going to go, and we're either going to do, you can do it through the glass and go and suck it through your teeth, or you can do it once it gets into your mouth and hold it in your mouth and go, and then swallow.
Oh,
and it's going to be completely different. Ready?
Yes.
Let's go.
I never knew any of the things that she is showing us and you all today. And guess what? Of course, we just did some real artistic sipping where you feel the aftertaste.
The finish.
The finish is what they call it, right?
Exactly.
The after finish. And I tell you, it's so different from like the beginning when you're sipping it and then you get to like really like a swoosh, right?
Exactly.
And you feel it all in the back of your throat, like, oh my gosh, I need to clear my throat here for a second. I need some music. No, but anyhow, April, this has been super amazing. And can you please tell my audience where can they reach out to? Because April holds seminars, workshops. She also does many, many events, and that's what her business is. If you're wondering, okay, so how does April the Wine Diva make money, right? Which is coming up next, because we wanted to showcase why she's the expert in her field. So April, if you can tell the audience where they can find you and how can they learn a little bit more, because we're not going to give away all the secrets here today.
I offer this as a complete class. You can learn about these wines and a lot more in a full day's class. And so if you want to do that, we can actually come to you and teach the class as a private event for you and your friends, or you can come to one of our classes. And either way, you can get more information on our website, which is sipandswirlevents.com.
And I'm being Havana, sip and swirl. Okay, and stay tuned for our wrap up, because guys and ladies, this is something that you definitely want to gift off to your mama, to your ladies, and all the men that loves wine.